Founded during the colonial period, this state capital abounds with Revolutionary-era landmarks, including the Episcopal Church, where Patrick Henry famously uttered, "Give me liberty or give me death." But nowhere is the city's heritage more prominently displayed than at the Valentine Richmond History Center. Constructed as a mansion in 1812, the museum features a 19th century dining room, one of the South's largest collections of Native American artifacts, and a Victorian-era portrait gallery. But one striking image stands apart from the rest.
The artifact is surrounded by a gilded frame of the mid-19th century. Featured in the canvas is a man, an African American.
Painted long before the abolition of slavery, this subject's elaborate depiction is incredibly rare. But according to curator David Vogel, the honor is well-deserved.
This man's story was a story of risk, of betrayal, of possible execution at any moment. And without his actions, this would not be the nation that it is today.
Who is this man? And how did his courageous deeds help to shape America? It's 1781 in Virginia. For 6 long years, American colonists have been waging war against the British. And in the home of a prominent patriot, a 33-year-old house slave named James is caught up in the revolutionary fervor.
He was an intelligent man, and in his master's home, James would overhear conversations of liberty, and he would yearn for his own freedom.
One day, it seems that dream is within reach. James learns that the Continental Army is enlisting enslaved black men to help fight against the British. In exchange, they will be freed at the war's end. So he eagerly begs his owner to allow him to enlist.
This would have been a great sacrifice to lose James, who's a valued and trusted servant.
In an effort to help the cause, however, his master consents. But instead of heading to the battlefield, James is assigned to serve in the home of a powerful general named Lafayette. He begins by performing menial duties.
But he shows that he is intelligent, and he's given more and more responsibility.
As James excels, Lafayette takes notice and begins to trust the eager and capable slave. Soon, the general asks James to undertake a critical mission for the Continental Army and become a spy.
The bold plan of Lafayette is to place James in the very household of the British commander, Lord Cornwallis. This mission, if he were to fail, would cost him his life.
But James is willing to do whatever it takes to gain his freedom, so he agrees to help. When he reaches the British camp, he presents himself as a runaway slave and encounters little resistance.
No one questions enslaved people moving back and forth between the British and the American armies. He is given the task of foraging for provisions.
And just as he had done with the Continental Army, James quickly gains the trust of the British.
And in time, he becomes closer and closer to the discussions that are happening at Cornwallis's camp.
The secret agent learns about British troop movements and dutifully relays the information to Lafayette. But he's about to have his allegiance tested. One day, James is taken aside by Lord Cornwallis, who makes him an extraordinary proposition. If he will return to the revolutionaries and spy for the British, Cornwallis will grant his freedom in a matter of weeks.
So at this point, James could either side with the British or with the Americans. He went from having no choices to suddenly having options.
So will James betray the American cause and take a shortcut to freedom? At the height of the American Revolution, a 33-year-old slave named James is spying on the British. Unaware that he's a secret agent, the Brits make James a tempting proposition. Spy on the colonists, and we'll give you liberty. So will James betray his fledgling country in exchange for freedom? James approaches Cornwallis and announces his decision. He'll become a British spy. The commander is thrilled. Then, James hands him documents that he states were stolen from the desk of Lafayette.
He doesn't really understand what these documents say. He just thinks they're important.
Cornwallis examines them, and much to his delight, these suspicions are confirmed. The British commander is concerned that his army at Yorktown is exposed and in desperate need of reinforcement. But the documents indicate that revolutionary troops in the area are dispersed and ill-equipped. So, Cornwallis decides to keep his men where they are.
Cornwallis feels that he is safe, waiting for his own reinforcements to come from New York.
But shortly thereafter, the general is dealt a shocking blow. He and his men are ambushed at Yorktown. Revolutionary forces surround them from the north and south and bottle up the York River, cutting off any means of escape.
Cornwallis is trapped, and he is outnumbered, and he is forced to surrender.
The crestfallen British commander is left to wonder what went wrong. But when he meets with Lafayette to discuss the terms of surrender, Cornwallis discovers the shocking truth.
He looks around the room, and who does he see standing but James? Cornwallis realizes that he's been betrayed.
His trusted servant is a double agent.
The information he was passing to Cornwallis was in fact false information. For Cornwallis, this must have been the largest humiliation of the war.
After this devastating defeat, British forces lose the will to fight, and 1 year later, the war officially ends.
The surrender at Yorktown is the last major conflict of the American Revolution.
As for James, he returns to Virginia, where he eventually secures his freedom and assumes the legal name James Armistead Lafayette. In 1824, in recognition of his heroism, the aging patriot sits for a formal portrait, the very same piece hanging in the Valentine Richmond History Center. And today, this canvas preserves the memory of an unsung hero whose daring deeds helped to free the nation and himself.